Welcome to JIVINITI's monthly live series where we connect the dots between public and planetary health. I'm your host, Priyanka Naithani, and I am so excited to welcome Jackie Norman, a former beef and dairy farmer turned vegan advocate based out of New Zealand. She is a writer, researcher, and presenter for the global animal rights nonprofit organization VeganFTA, which is also a proud member of the JIVINITI Coalition. Today, we will be diving into Jackie's transformational story, her vegan activism, and talk about an exciting upcoming panel discussion she's hosting. Jackie, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's lovely to be here.
So you are a former dairy farmer turned vegan advocate, and you have such a unique story. And I think I speak for most when I say I don't know many people who have taken the leap from animal agriculture to animal activism. So please share with us, what was that pin drop moment that inspired you to go vegan? When did you realize that you no longer aligned with your work as a dairy farmer?
Oh, my story is long, so I'm going to try and keep it as succinct as possible. The trigger point, actually, for when I went vegan, I'm embarrassed to say I actually had nothing to do with my experience in the dairy industry. It was actually a Facebook post, which was the trigger moment for me. So everyone out there that thinks, nobody sees my Facebook post, nobody, takes on board what I'm saying. I was just scrolling through, and I had a vegan friend who was always posting images that I just didn't want to see and kept scrolling and scrolling. And then out of the blue one day, she shared a post asking to sign a petition to ban pig farrowing crates here in New Zealand. And I didn't know that was even happening in New Zealand. You kind of think, you see these things and think, oh, that doesn't happen in my country. That happens other countries. I clicked into the petition, saw what was happening in my own country, and just that was it for me. I thought, I'm never going to knowingly, willingly participate in any animal exploitation again. So that was me. I went vegan on the spot that day, 2017. When I found out what I'd been part of in the dairy industry, that didn't really happen. I'd been out of the industry for 4 years when I went vegan, and I was kind of shy to share with people on Facebook groups that I had been in the farming industry. And once I started joining vegan Facebook groups and other sort of social networks, and once people found out, rather than vilifying me, they actually said, look, you've got a really powerful story here. You've got a unique perspective, and you really need to use your voice. You need to share the truth as an industry insider. And I'd never really thought about it before, but I thought, okay. I was pretty nervous, but it was only then that the penny really started to drop about what I had been part of. And after that, I just agreed. I thought, yeah, I've got to use my voice. There is no way other people know what is happening in the industry and what has always been happening in the industry. And it's down to me to help get it out there.
Yeah, in a previous interview, you described yourself as a puppet to the dairy industry. Really curious to know what you meant by that, and how did it feel when you had this realization that perhaps it was a puppetry in a way?
Yeah, I mean, as you can imagine, once it hit me what I've been part of, it was very, very hard to live with. Very hard. I don't know if that's something that you ever get over, but there's a quote that I really like that says the most dangerous phrase in the language is "We've always done it this way," and I think that's never truer than in the case of the dairy industry. Although, as you will know, JIVINITI and some of the amazing talks that Nivi's done, we haven't always done this way, but for the last few generations, at least, and in our generation, we have always done it this way. And that was the answer that I got. I was in the industry for 18 years, and there were many, many times that I cried. I didn't like a lot of the practices, a lot of the day-to-day operations that happened. Obviously, the separating of the cows and calves, and a lot of the things that happen. And I was always told, well, yeah, I know it's sad. Yeah, we know it's sad. Every year it was the same. Every week it was the same when I would cry. And I was always, yes, Jack, we know it's sad, but this is how it has to be. This is what happens. This is what cows are for. They are, and you're very much indoctrinated that, you are doing a great service. You are providing, essential nutrition to the country, to the world in our case, and so that's something that you're like, okay, yeah, it's sad, but this is what we need to do to get from A to B. And I certainly never realized how much I was exploited, if females are exploited in the industry either, until you know, we're all on a constant journey, and as I progress down the years that follow, you know, more and more things are hitting me, and I'm like, wow, yeah, we're all part of this system here.
Yeah, and thank you so much for sharing your experience in the dairy industry. I know these are really powerful insights about animal agriculture and how it's destroying public and planetary health, and you touched upon a key insight about even ecofeminism within the connections between public and planetary health. And tomorrow you are moderating an amazing panel discussion tomorrow, March 23rd at 5 p.m. U.S. Eastern Standard Time. The panel discussion is titled Milked: Women, Feminism, and Dairy, presented by the Vivas Network, a global community of vegan women leaders founded by Katrina Fox. And so what is this new documentary all about? What can our viewers expect from tomorrow's discussion?
It's an incredible documentary. If you haven't seen it yet, Milked is out now. You can watch it free anywhere, wherever you are in the world, on Water Bear Media. And, you know, it's incredible. I feel like it's a bit of a cliche to say, you know, it's up there with Cowspiracy and Seaspiracy, but it really, really is. It is that powerful a documentary. And, you know, really it's about, you know, tomorrow's panel is all about really celebrating Amy. Amy Taylor is an amazing, you know, it's International Women's Month. She is an amazing woman director who has done an incredible job with this documentary. You're not going to believe it. It really, you know, I'm looking forward to celebrating her. I'm looking forward to being able to host this wonderful panel of women. You know, we're going to be talking about so many things. Milked as a documentary, I think people are going to be really surprised when they see it. I was surprised as someone who'd been involved in the industry for so many years. You know, there was so much that even I didn't know, and she's just done an incredible job. But I think a lot of people will be wanting to see they'll be looking at the documentary expecting to see farmers being vilified, you know, people slagging off farmers, that farmers are bad people. And this is not the case with Milked at all. It does an amazing job of presenting the issues in the dairy industry, and they are huge issues that, you know, they affect the whole world. This is not just New Zealand's problem, and it presents the solutions. You know, these are the problems. This is an immensely powerful, all-controlling industry. What are we going to do about it? What can we do about it? And so she has done an incredible job. So we're all about celebrating Amy, but yeah, Katrina has let me host this, which is wonderful of her. And we also have Jessica Strathdy. She is coming to speak as well. She is another very amazing speaker. She is also a former dairy farm worker here in New Zealand, and it was her who first encouraged me to be active in the movement and to use my voice as well. And she's fantastic. So I'm really looking forward to that. And also we have the wonderful Nivi from JIVINITI as well, who is a wealth of knowledge. So it's going to be a fantastic panel.
Yes, we are looking forward to it so much. Tomorrow, 5 p.m. U.S. Eastern Standard Time. And Jackie, so going back to your personal story a little bit, you were a dairy and beef farmer, but now you're a vegan advocate. So can you please share a little bit about your activism today? What are some of your ongoing projects?
Sure. I think on a personal level, like I've mentioned, you know, I realize that I've got this unique insight, and we need to use that to educate vegans and animal rights advocates how to communicate more effectively with farmers. Because unless you've been there, unless you've been inside that, you can't possibly understand the psyche. You can't possibly understand how deep that conditioning, how deep that indoctrination is. And so that's something that people like me, people like Jessica Strathdy, you know, we're working very hard behind the scenes to try and help other advocates, you know, become more effective and open up those communication lines more with farmers. And on a day-to-day basis, I've been very lucky. I've been part of the global nonprofit VeganFTA for 3 years now. We are a global positive activism hub. You know, we're all about education, just like you with connecting the dots. You know, we put the information out there, just as we're doing with this panel tomorrow, and just as Amy has done such a fantastic job with Milked. You know, it's putting the information out there. It's not just pushing people and telling them what they should be doing, what they should be eating, or any of that kind of stuff. It's all about letting people, you know, just learn for themselves and connect those dots, and hopefully, you know, make choices for change.
Absolutely. I think you touched upon something really, really important, is the work that comes after that transition from animal agriculture into animal activism. What kind of conversations do you have with dairy farmers who might be thinking about this transition, or a possibility of rewriting the narrative and reimagining the way that we look at animal agriculture? Because a lot of what the media perpetuates is the idea that dairy cows live better lives and family-owned farms rather than industrial farms. And a lot of what feeds into that sentiment is that dairy farmers really love their cows and that there's a connection and that it's ethical. And so what do you think of this narrative, and how can we rewrite the story? Yeah, how would you respond to that?
Oh, how long have you got? Yeah. I mean, just the whole, do farmers love their animals? That can go down a whole, a whole presentation in itself. It's about, like I said, unless the amount of us that have been on both sides of the industry are very, very few. And we know ourselves, before we became vegan, we thought it was okay to eat animals. We thought it was okay to wear animals. We thought it was okay to that a lot of things that we didn't know about. And we need to understand that the indoctrination, the conditioning with farming is every bit as deep as that, a lot more so, I would say, but it's on that level. We were all once in a different place. And we need to remember that, I mean, when I went vegan, I want, the penny dropped, and I wanted to go and say to all my farming friends, stop doing what you're doing, it's terrible. But we're not all in that same place. I can't expect everybody to make the same changes that I did at the same time. But really, I remember having an interview with lovely Dr. Klepper a couple of years ago, and I sort of said, what do I need to do? What do I need to do to encourage my family to make changes, to be more effective? And he said, all you can do is lead by example. And so that's what I've tried to do on a personal level, whether I'm talking with vegans, with pre-vegans, with farmers. It's just lead by example and have open conversations, really. For me, I find the use of language, particularly on a feminist level, I'm not going to go down the do farmers love their animals track at the moment, because that is a very big conversation, and I know that's always quite controversial. The main thing to remember for me is that I did not know what I was doing. Ironically, I was vegetarian the whole time that I was farming. I never drank milk in my life. I was lactose intolerant, like most of us are. I don't know why I didn't connect the dots sooner. Conditioning, feeling trapped in the industry, it could be all manner of things, but I did not see what I was doing to those animals. So when I was milking them, I was I could milk 220 cows on my own, and I was proud of that as a female, because I was like, I'm a leader in the industry, look at how much I'm able to do, as little old me, 5 foot nothing, with in charge of a 220 herd of these beautiful cows. But I didn't see what I was doing, because I was patting them, because I was singing to them, because I wasn't going out there. I didn't see myself as abusing or exploiting these animals, and that's the thing that we need to remember with farmers, is that they don't see what they're doing. Particularly in a male-dominated industry as well, people don't think about how, farmers will see their wives, right? And their farmers are fathers, and their wives carry children for 9 months. Cows do the same, and yet humans get to keep their babies and cows don't. And depending on whether they're male or female, the calf is slaughtered. So there are a lot of things that we just don't realize, they just don't see what they do. They don't make the connection. And like for me, when I did, it was just mind-blowing and harrowing. And I don't think I'll ever get over that. But it's just having those conversations. I find the use of language is very important as well when trying to get a message across as an advocate. For example, I see a lot of vegan activists, they say cows are raped. And it's like that one word is supposed to sum up everything. You're just supposed to know exactly what that means. And I have to say, as someone who witnessed artificial insemination many, many times, and I tell you what, I turned away every time. I'm embarrassed, but I turned away every time because I could not bear to watch it. But what happens to a cow during the process of artificial insemination, it is nothing like, non-consensual intercourse. And so, expecting one word to sum up everything, you can't always expect that to be effective. You can't always expect people to identify with that. Sure, it might take me a lot longer. It might take me 10, 15 minutes to explain what happens in the process of artificial insemination. But if that's what helps, if that's what gets the message across, it would be great if more people could really educate themselves, more vegan advocates could really educate themselves on these processes, what happens. Ask me if you want, I don't care, ask more of us that have left the industry that have got this information, because we'll be happy to share. And if that helps people be better advocates and say to their friends or family, did you know this is what happens? And did you know that these cows actually carry their calves for 9 months, just like humans, and they get them taken away? It's the nitty gritty that we need to get down to. It's the education. It's not the preaching. It's the education. This is what happens. And for a lot of people, I think that would be enough. I think for a lot of farmers, if they really knew what they were doing, what they were part of, I think it would be enough. That's just my take on it. But
yeah, language does play a huge role. Conversations, interpersonal dialogues around veganism, education. And I think what you were mentioning earlier about this indoctrination and on like a subconscious level, I think media plays a huge role in that as well. It doesn't help that a lot of these industries, dairy, egg, meat industries, have billions and billions of dollars in funding for campaigns and perpetuate certain narratives in media that a lot of us believe. And like you were saying earlier, you don't know sometimes. Education is it's huge. And so I'm curious to know a little bit, in New Zealand, what are some of the dominant narratives around dairy? What are your thoughts around media determinants of health? How do they impact people's understanding of dairy in New Zealand?
It's very much, I actually heard recently, I think I've heard Nivi talk about it actually, that New Zealand is one of only 2 countries in the world that allows direct, direct to consumer, farmer advertising. And this is what happens in New Zealand, the whole time we've got it pushed down us that, milk is essential. We need calcium for strong bones. We're always talking about offsetting and, the industry is doing this, to offset, and we want to be, reduce our carbon emissions and all of that kind of thing. There's an amazing guy out here, Dr. Mike Joy, who's a freshwater ecologist. He's actually featured in the Milk documentary. And I remember my mind being blown, absolutely blown, when I interviewed him a couple of years ago. And he was saying how farmers are paid millions of dollars each year by the government not to pollute 2 of our lakes alone. I think it's something like $40 million per lake every year by the government, not to pollute Lake Taupo and not to pollute Lake Rotorua. I mean, that's just the tip of the iceberg. The government pays more in subsidies propping up the dairy industry than the dairy industry even earns. And yet it is supposed to be, it's painted as this, we're doing such amazing, the backbone of the country, the backbone of New Zealand, and there are other countries, I was very fortunate a couple of years ago to give evidence in Parliament into an inquiry into the long-term sustainability of the dairy industry in New South Wales and Australia. And everybody else there, except me and a couple of members of the Vegan Society, they were all pushing the government, saying, we need money, we need more subsidies, we need this, we need that, we need support. And I sort of said to them, well, learn from New Zealand what not to do. Look at what we're doing. We're propping up. You're just throwing more money, good after bad. It's just destroying the planet. It's huge. I mean, you've only got to watch Milk. I had no idea until I watched Milk the incredible impact of dairy in New Zealand alone. This is just little old New Zealand. So if you watch Milk and see the impact of the dairy industry in and what we're having on the rest of the world, it affects everybody. Like I said, it's not just New Zealand's problem.
Right. Yeah. And the other country that you mentioned, aside from New Zealand, that has direct consumer access with marketing and advertising is United States. And it's really interesting how there's a lot of funding and a lot of ties in there. So you spoke about the impact of public and planetary health, and you once mentioned in an interview that being vegan is not enough. Could you describe and elaborate a little bit more on that? Because there's a lot of dots to connect. It's not just about the diet. It's a whole lifestyle choice, and it impacts public, planetary, animal health. And I'm so curious to know what your thoughts are on that.
Absolutely. I mean, I never thought I was going to be one of these vegans that says, it's not enough just to be vegan, because I'm the same one every year. I've got my vegan anniversary, the day that I went vegan. I'm like, right, so now I've saved this many animals and this many gallons of water and this many, square meters of forest, I'm doing my bit. But the thing is, it's all very well me doing it. But it's not just down to me. It's not just down to all of us that are currently vegan now and not going to be able to save the world. We're not going to be able to change what's happening. We need to, have a greater impact. And I think it's our duty to share, to educate, and as I said, lead by example. And I find the best way, like I said, is to have those open conversations, because I've found many people, I'm really lucky that, I have had people come to me that have said they have gone vegan because of something that, they've learned. And, it doesn't matter how we get there, but I've never found really that forcing the message on people, everybody's got a different message and everyone responds to different messages. So for me, I'm telling people that they're wrong is not my way of going about things, but just saying how things are, which is why I think Milked is so effective as a documentary as well. It just says, this is how it is, what are you going to do with that? And I think that's what we need to be doing as vegans. We need to be teaching, really educating, and just leading by example. Like you said, I used to think that it was enough just to not eat animal products and not wear them. But for me, it's a lot more than that. We made the decision several years ago, before pandemics and everything else, that we wouldn't fly. I don't fly anywhere. That's a whole different conversation, but I don't fly. I will not fly, and I'm always constantly thinking, what can I do to reduce my impact less, But yeah, at the end of the day, lead by example. I think that's honestly the best thing we can do is vegans, is just walk the walk and, talk the walk, talk the talk, sure, but walk the walk as well. We need to show, like you guys are doing with health and everything, it's better for your health. It's better for the planet. We're not designed to ingest or wear animal products in any way. And, the thing is, we're running out of time. We all know that, and I think that's one of the most frustrating things about the scenario here in New Zealand, and I'm sure other governments around the world. There are all these things happening. There's pandemics, there's climate change, and they're throwing every other solution except not eating animals, not having dairy, not it's just like, why do you not go there? Why do you find it impossible to go there? I'd say money.
Absolutely. And I think when advocacy is rooted in evidence-based storytelling, which it sounds like Milk documentary absolutely showcases and exposes the dairy industry, but through evidence. And I think that's something that is really pivotal within the vegan movement, and really colors not just being vegan, but also having this connection between public, planetary, animal health. And so thank you so much, Jackie, for joining us today and for sharing about your story. We are so excited for tomorrow's panel discussion that you're hosting with powerful vegan women, including Amy Taylor, the director of the new documentary Milked, White Lies in Dairyland, Jessica Stratdy, founder of Mothers Against Dairy, and our very own founder, Nivi Jaswal, founder of the JIVINITI and the Versa Foundation. So tune into the panel tomorrow by registering at thevivasnetwork.com. You can also watch the documentary Milked for free on waterbear.com, like you mentioned. And is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
Oh, just thank you so much for having me on here. It's still early in the morning here. But yeah, just honestly, watch Milked. I would say to everybody, watch Milked. Go to Water Bear. You can watch it wherever you are. You can watch it on all kinds of devices. We need to learn, and this is a fantastic documentary. I'm so proud that this documentary has come out of New Zealand. I'm so proud that Amy, as a female director, has taken on an entire industry. I know how hard it is to speak out against an industry of this size. I mean, the first time I did it, I was absolutely terrified and said, I'm never doing that again. And this amazing, courageous woman has taken on an entire industry, and she has done an incredible job. I'm absolutely blown away. I've watched it several times now. I'm still blown away. I really, really hope that it has the effect around the world that it deserves to. So please just watch Water Bear and watch Milked on Water Bear. And yeah, please feel free to come along to the panel tomorrow and watch our amazing speakers.
Yes, absolutely. Panel discussion tomorrow, March 23rd, 5 p.m. U.S. Eastern Standard Time. That's 10 a.m. New Zealand time?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Any other time zones we should include?
8 a.m. in Australia. Apart from that, still too early in the morning for me. But 10 a.m. tomorrow, my time, I should be a little more awake.
Wonderful. I'm looking forward to it so much. And thank you again for joining us on JIVINITI, where we connect the dots between public and planetary health. Thank you so much, Jackie.
Thank you so much.
Okay, take care. And until next time.